Once upon a time, if I filmed this video correctly, the 3 balls that I went looking for in my house this morning that I could not find for the life of me are becoming edited flaming swords. And we're going to talk about all the science fiction and fantasy series that I am currently engrossed in. And yep, there's 34 of them. Oh my God. Until I sat down and looked at all the science fiction and fantasy books and LitRPG books that I'm currently in the midst of the series, I really had no idea how big that number really was. Now, for some of you larger booktubers out there, and maybe some of you larger readers out there, you may have series that go into the 40s and 50s and 60s that you're currently working on. My number right now is 34, and this does not count any series that I'm completed with, nor does it count any series that I haven't begun yet. So how I've tried to work this out today is to give the community an idea, because a lot of people have asked me, have I read this series or have I read that series? I wanted to let you guys know kind of where I'm at in my ongoing series, some of which are still currently being written, starting with the big 3, of course, A Song of Ice and Fire, The Kingkiller Chronicles, and The Gentleman Bastards. Those are books that I'm current on, waiting on the authors to catch up. I may be waiting a long time, but you know what? I got kind of a cool circus ringleader outfit. I can wait a little bit. Before we get too far into the SFF world, let's take a quick pit stop at historical fiction. Yes, I am on book 3 of Shogun right now, and it is so good I've decided to read the entire Asian saga. Very excited for that. So that is an ongoing series that I'm currently juggling. Okay, so I've divided the rest of this grouping into 3 main categories, which I will timestamp so you can jump to whichever you're interested in the most. The first is fantasy, second is science fiction, and the third, of course, on this channel, we talk about LitRPG, so we're going to have those too. 34 ongoing series that I'm reading is a crazy amount in my mind that I'm mentally juggling. And it's really no wonder that I love so much when an author starts their second or third or ongoing book with the story so far. These epic fantasies and big space operas have so many characters, some of them in the hundreds or even the thousands. We need, or at least I need, to kind of get a refresher course without trying to Google or Wikipedia too much, because you don't want to run into spoilers. So let's start off with the fantasy books. So starting with fantasy series, Malazan Book of the Fallen, I just started last night. This is, of course, a 10-book series. It is complete, and I know there's lots of secondary series and books as well, but for my purposes, the first original 10 are what I'm committing to. By the way, I don't know how long it's going to take me to do all of it, but I promised the community I would start this based on their poll, so here's number 1. Another series that I'm working my way through, of course, is The Legends of the Bruhai by Tori Tekken. This is book 1, The Bloodstones. I am current with where we're at right now. Come on, Tori, we needs books 2 and 3. We needs them. Now, some of these books I only have on either Audible or on e-format. So for the ones that I have in physical, I will hold up here. That's why maybe some of my shelves look a little emptier than usual. And for some of the books that I have on ebooks or on Audible, I'll throw them up here so you can see what the covers look like. Another series that I'm loving right now, I'm only 1 book into it, is The Riverfall Chronicles by Jacqueline Hagan. I have read and loved The Wickwire Watch. I can't wait to start The Spider Key. I'm hoping to get to that in March or April at the latest. Of course, a big series that is new to me in the last year, and I know it's new to a lot of you guys, is The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill. I am current to everything that he's written in that universe so far. I am eagerly anticipating the next book. I think it's called Of Empires and Dust, but I'll double check that. I'm very excited. I love the Bound and the Broken series. Classic fantasy with a modern twist. You've heard that described before, but it is true. I have read every book in that series so far. Big thumbs up, huge 5-star series. A gigantic series that I have only read 1 book of so far is Discworld. And yeah, because I've read 1 book, it is going in this list of 34 series that I'm currently juggling. The book that I read was Guards of the City Watch arc. I really want to start Men-at-Arms as soon as possible. If you looked at my February TBR video, you know it is extremely dense. It is almost impossible for me to add anything to February, but I'm going to try to get to Men-at-Arms in March and keep pushing through Discworld. Another author that I love so much is Kevin Hearn, and I talked about him a little bit in my urban fantasy video, but two series that I'm currently working through are the Ink and Sigil series and the Seven Kennings series. Now, I believe the Seven Kennings third audiobook has just been released. If that's the case, I'm going to get to that in March or in April, and we will get through that trilogy, but Ink and Sigil, I believe we're still waiting on the author for. Moving on through our list, The Saga of the Forgotten Warrior by Larry Correia. I love this series so much. The first three books I read in physical copy. The fourth book I'm waiting for the Audible to come out, which Larry Correia, by the way, thank you Mike from Mike's Book Reviews, who reached out to him on X to find out when the Audible is coming out of book 4. It's going to be, I believe, the third week of March. I'm very excited about that. Apparently, it's got a fantastic narrator. I'm interested to see how I perceive that series on audio versus physical written, but that's another series that I'm moving through. Of course, a huge urban fantasy series that I'm loving and I am current to right now are the Dresden Files. Is the Dresden Files? Are the Dresden Files? I think it is the Dresden Files. Anyway, I'm sure somebody in the comments will correct my grammar. Please do so. Anyways, I love the Dresden Files. I'm completely caught up, and I'm anxiously awaiting Jim Butcher, the author, to write out the next book because this series is getting huge. I have no idea where it's going, but I love every minute of it. I couldn't really be a fantasy booktuber if I didn't hold up the Stormlight archives of one of the giant series that I'm going through. And by the way, of course, you could be a booktuber without reading the Stormlight archive. That's nonsense. There are no resume books. Read whatever you want. Anyway, Stormlight Archive, another huge series that I'm working my way through. I know book 5 comes out this December. I'm excited for it. We have heard that Brandon Sanderson is going to take an extended break between books 5 and book 6. Some have said 5 years, some up to 10 years. I don't know. Hopefully, and most importantly, my circus outfit still fits by the time book 6 comes out of the Stormlight archives. Another fantastic series I'm working through is The Band by Nicholas Eames. I have read book 1, Kings of the Wild, and book 2, Bloody Rose, waiting on book 3. I think it's been a few years that it's been in the works, but I trust Nicholas Eames will put it out. I'm excited to get through that trilogy. I love classic rock. I feel like Kings of the Wild is really an homage to 70s classic rock. The 80s kind of comes forward in Bloody Rose. And I don't know if the 90s is going to be his next book or if he's just going to do a mix of genre, but I'm here for it. I love it. Kings of the Wild, The Band, awesome ongoing series I'm working through. Of course, we talk lots about urban fantasy here on the channel. The Eric Carter series I am currently caught up to. There are 9 books out so far. I know the author Stephen Blackmore is working on it. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy. I've done all of these on ebook, so I'll put book 1 up here so you can see what the title is. This is about an absolutely bonkers necromancer living in Los Angeles. I've done urban fantasy videos before to tell you more about Eric Carter. Go back into the catalog and take a look. Great stuff. Let's move on to some science fiction, and of course we have to start with the Red Rising saga. This is the most current book, Lightbringer. I am caught up with Red Rising. Very excited for Red God, which I believe comes out next year in 2025. You know I will be a day one reader when that hits. Another space opera series we've talked about quite a bit on the channel is The Sun Eater. I am currently about to start Demon in White. It is part of my February TBR, so we're moving through The Sun Eater. Fantastic stuff. One of the best science fiction books that I've ever read that can be read as a standalone is Hyperion. But it's also book 1 in the Hyperion Cantos, which I am committed to finishing. I have read Hyperion, which is book 1. I've read The Fall of Hyperion, which is book 2. The next book is Endymion, which is book number 3, and then there's a 4th book after that. I was thinking the other day about Sun Eater and about Red Rising, and I thought to myself, Dan Simmons' Hyperion world is too good for me to just stop at book 2, even though I kind of had a couple issues with it. And by the way, my issues with Hyperion Book 2, which is, like I said, The Fall of Hyperion, it's not so much that I had a problem with the story. It was just told in such a different narrative style than Book 1. It was a little bit jarring and not really what I was expecting. But some time has passed since I've done Book 2, and I'm coming to appreciate it for what it is. So Book 3, Endymion, in the Hyperion Cantos, is still ongoing for me. Speaking of books that can be read as a standalone or part of a series is Dune. I have read Book 1, Dune. I need to read the rest of them, at least up until where everybody says it kind of gets a little wonky. So I know for me that's at least books 2 and 3, possibly into book 4. I have to check with our resident Dune expert Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews because he'll know where to tell me to stop. But I'm very excited to continue on with Frank Herbert's breakthrough work of Dune. It just doesn't get any better for me in science fiction than Dune. I don't know what I'm waiting on. I think I was just excited that I finished Dune in the first place a couple of years ago when I read it, but it's time to return to the Dune universe. Another book in the science fiction universe that I'm working through, it's actually kind of science fantasy. Actually, there's 2 series. One of them is Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun. I am current and I have read the entirety of Book of the New Sun, but what I haven't read yet is Earth of the New Sun, and I'm going to count that as part of the overall series. So again, that is part of my 34 ongoing series. I'm reading Earth of the New Sun in March. I love Gene Wolfe way too much to keep away from it for too long because I don't want to forget where last we left off in book 4. And the other series that I mentioned that's kind of science fiction fantasy is The Hybrid Helix by J.C.M. Byrne. I read Wistful Ascending back in, I want to say, the summer, maybe July. Now it's time to read Return of the Griffin. That is also part of my February TBR. I really need to get moving on my February TBR because, as you know, I'm reading Malazan and Sun Eater and Shogun all in the same month. So yeah, we got to get The Hybrid Helix in there as well. I'm excited to keep moving through that. I know there's plenty of books in the series. Another great ongoing series I'm working through. Of course, we got to talk some LitRPG here on the channel. Here are some series, and I don't have physical copies of any of them except for this one, which is The Chaos Seeds by Dr. Alaron Kong. This is book 1, The Land. I believe there's 7 books out, maybe 8 books out right now. He's taken a bit of a writing break, but I am current to where he's at. Here's a listing of all the ongoing LitRPG series that I'm currently reading, and I'll let you know whether or not I'm caught up or not. The first one, obviously the big daddy these days, Dungeon Crawler Carl. I am current with where Matt Dinneman, the author, is at. The second one, He Who Fights with Monsters. I am 1 book away from being current. I need to start that. I think it's book 9. Realistically, it's probably not going to be until April, but I'm going to get to it. The next one is Awaken Online by Travis Bagwell. I've read all but the most recent one. I have to get to that one pretty soon. I just love it so much. It's been a little challenging because I read Awaken Online versus doing Audible for the LitRPG that I normally do. And fitting in LitRPG into my sight reading calendar is a little bit challenging sometimes when I've got all these other written words that I'm reading. But I have to get through Awaken Online. Let's talk about one of my favorite LitRPG authors, Eric Uegland, author of The Good Guys, The Bad Guys, and The Grim Guys. I am fully caught up in all 3 of those series with the exception of The Bad Guys because a new book was just released over the last month or so. I have to get to that for sure in March. I'm also going to ask Mr. Uegland if he wants to come on the channel. For you LitRPG fans, I think you would love this guy. He is super cool, he's hilarious, and I think he kind of understands the readership very well of LitRPG readers. Another great author in the LitRPG world is Andrew Rowe. I am current in both the Arcane Ascension series and the Weapons and Wielders series. I will throw those back up here over my shoulders for the graphics, but this is stuff that I highly encourage people that haven't done LitRPG to read because I'm a little bit mixed on this. My buddy Andrew over at Andrew Wizardly Reads calls it LitRPG progression fantasy. I'm a little bit split on it. I think it has 1 foot kind of planted in fantasy and another foot kind of planted a little bit or maybe lightly stepping into LitRPG. For the purposes of this video though, I put it in the LitRPG category. I don't know why, but I'm current on both of those series and they're fantastic. Another series in the LitRPG world that I'm currently moving my way through are the Completionist Chronicles by Dakota Kraut. He does not get talked about that much in this corner of Booktube. I'm going to share with you a dedicated video of Dakota Kraut, some of his works. It's really, really good stuff. He does a lot of things in his writing that are excellent for new LitRPG readers. So I want to talk a little bit more about Dakota Kraut. The reason why I'm laughing is because I just had to say that 3 times into the camera. It'll all get edited out, but wow, that was a tongue twister. Anyway, the Completionist Chronicles. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the last one in the LitRPG is Dragon Sorcerer. This is by Sean Oswald. It's good stuff. I've only read book 1. I think there's already 3 or 4 books out. They're going to happen this summer. The TBR is just building up too big, too large. It's a little overwhelming. And of course, that's what's going to get us into the one for the road of today is what do you do when you're overwhelmed? Now, this is going to be kind of a short little message to everybody, but it's also kind of a message to me too. Sometimes we have to look at when we feel overwhelmed as to the cause of our overwhelm. And yes, it can absolutely, and most of the time does happen through external sources, but sometimes we have to look in the mirror and say, am I causing my own overwhelm? Am I feeling overwhelmed due to commitments that I've made that maybe I didn't need to? Or maybe I just kind of had ambitious goals and there's times in our lives that we sit back and go, what the heck was I thinking with that? These are 34 ongoing series, and yes, I understand. It's no big deal to be waiting around for Song of Ice and Fire or King Killer Chronicles because we could be waiting till the Earth of the New Sun happens, which is in the far distant billions of years from now. But overwhelming feelings happen to all of us, and I think my challenge here for us today is to try to recognize when we are the cause of our own overwhelm, take a step back, take a deep breath, and go, all right, I don't need to be so overwhelmed. These aren't things that absolutely have to be done immediately. Let's prioritize, let's organize, and feel a little bit more in control of things. I hope you guys enjoy this. Please spread some positivity out in the world today. If we don't do it, I'm not sure who's going to do it. And of course, like always, here's your fortune.